Hi, welcome to the quiz. You will be presented with multiple choice questions, each displayed on screen for a short time. Please make sure to attempt answering all the questions. Quizzes help us to reinforce our knowledge, identify areas where we need to focus more, and improve our overall performance. Taking quizzes can also help to increase retention and make the learning process more engaging and enjoyable. With that out of the way, you can answer along on quizalto.com. The exact URL of this quiz will be in the notes down below. Let's get started. Good luck. How does AWS Cloud9 facilitate code reviews? AWS Cloud9 only allows for asynchronous code reviews through external tools. AWS Cloud9 requires manual processes for code reviews. AWS Cloud9 supports real-time code reviews with collaborative editing and commenting features. AWS Cloud9 does not support code reviews. What benefit does AWS Cloud9's integration with AWS CodeCommit provide? Integration with AWS CodeCommit allows seamless version control and collaborative coding within the IDE. AWS Cloud9's integration with AWS CodeCommit is limited to code reviews. AWS Cloud9 cannot integrate with AWS CodeCommit. AWS Cloud9 uses CodeCommit only for issue tracking. What is the AWS Cloud9 feature that allows for pair programming? The shared environment feature of AWS Cloud9 enables pair programming by allowing two developers to work on the same codebase simultaneously. AWS Cloud9 does not support pair programming. AWS Cloud9 only supports asynchronous code review. AWS Cloud9 requires external tools for pair programming. What is a unique feature of AWS Cloud9 for managing serverless applications? AWS Cloud9 can only deploy serverless applications but not manage them. AWS Cloud9 requires third-party plugins to manage serverless applications. AWS Cloud9 only supports server-based applications. AWS Cloud9 provides direct integration with AWS Lambda, enabling testing and debugging of serverless applications within the IDE. How does AWS Cloud9 assist in managing dependencies for projects? AWS Cloud9 does not support dependency management. AWS Cloud9 allows for easy installation and management of project dependencies through the terminal and integrated package managers. AWS Cloud9 uses a proprietary system for dependency management. AWS Cloud9 requires manual installation of dependencies outside the IDE. How does AWS Cloud9 support Agile development practices? AWS Cloud9 supports Agile practices with features like real-time collaboration, version control, and integration with CI/CD tools. AWS Cloud9 is not suitable for Agile development. AWS Cloud9 does not integrate with any CI/CD tools. AWS Cloud9 lacks real-time collaboration features. What kind of development workflows does AWS Cloud9 support? AWS Cloud9 only supports Agile development workflows. AWS Cloud9 is limited to traditional waterfall development workflows. AWS Cloud9 supports various development workflows including Agile, DevOps, and continuous integration. AWS Cloud9 does not support DevOps practices. What type of projects is AWS Cloud9 most suitable for? AWS Cloud9 is only suitable for web development projects. AWS Cloud9 is suitable for a wide range of projects, including web development, serverless applications, and mobile app development. AWS Cloud9 is limited to server-side applications. AWS Cloud9 can only be used for academic projects. What is the advantage of AWS Cloud9's collaborative environment feature? It allows multiple users to work on the same project simultaneously, with real-time changes and communication. It only supports asynchronous collaboration through code commits. It requires additional tools for real-time collaboration. It limits access to only one user at a time. What kind of terminal does AWS Cloud9 provide? AWS Cloud9 requires manual configuration of the terminal for each project. AWS Cloud9 does not include a terminal feature. AWS Cloud9 provides a fully featured terminal preconfigured with AWS CLI and other tools needed for development. AWS Cloud9's terminal is limited to basic shell commands. Can AWS Cloud9 be used for web development? AWS Cloud9 only supports backend development, not web development. Yes, AWS Cloud9 supports web development with features like live preview and browser compatibility testing. AWS Cloud9 requires additional tools for web development. No, AWS Cloud9 is not designed for web development. What kind of application can be developed using AWS Cloud9? AWS Cloud9 is limited to mobile app development. AWS Cloud9 supports the development of various applications including web, serverless, and container-based applications. AWS Cloud9 is exclusively for front-end development. AWS Cloud9 can only be used for database management applications. What is a key feature of AWS Cloud9 that enhances productivity? AWS Cloud9 productivity is solely reliant on external plugins. AWS Cloud9 offers code completion and automatic suggestions to speed up coding. AWS Cloud9 only enhances productivity through UI customizations. AWS Cloud9 automatically writes code for the developer. How can AWS Cloud9 help with debugging serverless applications? AWS Cloud9 cannot be used for debugging serverless applications. AWS Cloud9 requires external tools for debugging serverless applications. AWS Cloud9 integrates with AWS Lambda, allowing you to set breakpoints and debug serverless applications within the IDE. AWS Cloud9 only supports logging for serverless applications, not debugging. What feature in AWS Cloud9 aids in debugging code in a collaborative environment? AWS Cloud9 requires external debugging tools for collaborative environments. AWS Cloud9 does not support debugging in collaborative environments. AWS Cloud9 only allows one developer to debug at a time. AWS Cloud9 allows setting breakpoints and inspecting variables in real time, even when multiple developers are working together. What feature in AWS Cloud9 helps with version control? AWS Cloud9 has built-in support for Git, allowing easy version control and collaboration. AWS Cloud9 uses a proprietary version control system. AWS Cloud9 requires third-party version control tools. AWS Cloud9 does not support version control. How does AWS Cloud9 facilitate testing applications? AWS Cloud9 includes built-in tools and integrations for running and testing applications within the IDE. AWS Cloud9 lacks testing capabilities and requires external tools. AWS Cloud9 is limited to manual testing processes. AWS Cloud9 only supports testing through third-party plugins. What security feature is provided by AWS Cloud9? AWS Cloud9 relies solely on encryption for security. AWS Cloud9 does not include any security features. AWS Cloud9 uses IAM roles and policies to control access to the environment and resources. AWS Cloud9 only uses basic username and password authentication. What is the purpose of AWS Cloud9's collaborative coding feature? AWS Cloud9 does not support collaborative coding. AWS Cloud9 requires external tools for collaborative coding. The collaborative coding feature allows multiple developers to work on the same code base simultaneously, enhancing team productivity. AWS Cloud9's collaborative coding feature is for code reviews only. How does AWS Cloud9 integrate with AWS services? AWS Cloud9 has built-in integrations with AWS services like AWS Lambda and AWS CodeStar, allowing seamless deployment and management of AWS resources. AWS Cloud9 requires third-party plugins for AWS service integrations. AWS Cloud9 does not integrate with other AWS services directly. AWS Cloud9 can only interact with AWS S3 for storage purposes. What is AWS Cloud9? AWS Cloud9 is a cloud storage service for backups and archiving. AWS Cloud9 is a cloud-based integrated development environment that lets you write, run, and debug your code with just a browser. AWS Cloud9 is a virtual machine management tool for running multiple VMs. AWS Cloud9 is an AWS billing management service. What is the benefit of AWS Cloud9's preconfigured environments for new projects? Preconfigured environments reduce setup time by providing immediate access to essential tools and configurations needed for new projects. AWS Cloud9's preconfigured environments are only for specific use cases. AWS Cloud9 requires extensive setup for each new project. Preconfigured environments limit flexibility for custom setups. What benefit does AWS Cloud9 offer for remote development teams? AWS Cloud9 requires a local network for collaboration. AWS Cloud9's cloud-based environment and real-time collaboration features make it ideal for remote development teams. AWS Cloud9 is only suitable for individual developers. AWS Cloud9 does not support remote team collaboration. What is the benefit of using AWS Cloud9 for educational purposes? AWS Cloud9 is too complex for educational purposes. AWS Cloud9 allows students to easily access and share their coding environments, making it ideal for collaborative learning. AWS Cloud9 does not support educational discounts. AWS Cloud9 is only suitable for professional developers. What is the significance of AWS Cloud9's integration with AWS CodeStar? AWS Cloud9's integration with AWS CodeStar is only for version control. The integration with AWS CodeStar streamlines the CI/CD process, making it easier to develop, build, and deploy applications. AWS Cloud9 does not integrate with AWS CodeStar. AWS Cloud9's integration with AWS CodeStar is limited to issue tracking. And that's a wrap. Thanks to everyone who participated. Remember, you can answer along on quizalto.com, where you can keep track of your progress and find much more quizzes. We hope you had a fun and challenging time. Until next time. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel for more. Hit the bell icon to be notified as soon as we upload. Please leave a comment if you have any thoughts or suggestions, and if you think this video is worth sharing with someone who could benefit from it, please forward a link to them. See you next time. Thanks for watching.